Hi, brothers and sisters, and welcome to another Temple 420 Sabbath Sesh here. It's me, brother Chapin Walton, and I'm here with Craig X. Ruben, the founder of Temple 420, as we are commonly. What kind of animals got there? Just regular doggies?
Two dogs. One, his mom was hit by um, a car, and so we got that one and her sister. And then the sister recently died,
Oh,
disappeared. And then this one we call Sneakies because he kind of snuck into our hearts. He just kept following around our dogs. And at first, I was throwing rocks at him and chasing him away. And finally, I just gave up and said, "Okay, you can join us. If you can't beat him, join him."
they do kind of look like those breeds I see in like the Mexican thing.
Yeah, because they're just
Not sure what
Mexican
those are.
street dogs. I don't know what they are either, but they're they're everywhere. See my pond in the background?
Nice.
It's
That's
the
pretty
pool in the foreground, but the pond is where we grow the fish.
nice.
My son and I are just enjoying a fire this morning.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's so funny because we live out in the middle of nowhere, but we're happy here. It's
Right.
nice being out here.
Sometimes that's the best. I was raised myself almost out of nowhere. It was at least 15 minutes from any town stuff, and that was really nice.
In Kansas, Missouri, which state?
It was Missouri, south of Kansas City,
Missouri. Such a
in a
beautiful
town
state.
just outside of a town called Peculiar. I claimed Peculiar, but I was about 10 minutes out, kind of in the
Yeah,
area that's not even marked as a city. So,
in the boondoggles.
yo,
And
always a interesting place.
it's nice. Wherever you grow up is nice because you grew up.
Right, true.
Hmm. All right.
And since we got started here, I'll pray everybody in here.
Thank you.
Discuss stuff here. Dear Almighty God, thank you for the time that we come together and discuss your word and discuss the things for the week. Thank you for the blessings you give us and the people you have watch with us and attend with us. May they be inspired to be go after your word and encouraged in their hearts to seek after you. Amen.
Amen. Now, are we still getting our 6 typical watchers per episode, or have we increased since we cut one of those TikTok shorts?
I actually am bad at looking at the stats. I noticed I did throw some shorts on there, and some did
Mm-hmm.
better than others. Like last I looked, the cats. I picked one of the cat, and the cat didn't have any shorts, but we had another short that was looked at like 5 or 8 times, and it looked like it got 3 or 5 people last time on the last video when I looked. So it wasn't
Interesting.
doing too bad.
All right. Hey, you know what? It's not about the quantity, anyways. It's always about the quality.
Right. I'm kind of like I was raised with it too, and if there's 1 or 2 people that we can encourage, to me that's a good thing there. If there's this
And
video that we can pull people to and encourage them to follow after God, and if it's just 1 or 2 people, that's fine with me. All the best.
right. And I grew up in the city of Los Angeles, where I always were told, oh, it's the city of angels, it's the city of angels, but it seems like it's run by devils for sure.
I bet I've heard some crazy stories.
Mm. I never realized how it was the epicenter for global government control. Um, but I think there's more overlapping law enforcement agencies in LA County than probably anywhere else on the planet, and it really is a beautiful city, and yet at the same time extremely oppressive and, I guess you say, progressive. It's heading us towards the new world order very quickly.
I could see that. I
Mm-hmm.
think we fall pretty close with government agencies here. Oddly
It,
enough.
it, Ah,
particularly Kansas City, because we started off in between New York and Vegas. And
mm-hmm.
working with the IRS, I learned that the main database and a lot of the functions started out of Kansas City, and they kind of headquarter out of Kansas City to manage the mob and then the people in the east and the west. But they keep it quiet and then have a headquarters in Washington D.C. That's interesting.
Right. Well, Kansas City was a big mob town at one point, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's how we've got so big with our metro area, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody kept coming into the city and people kept expanding. Like, we need to stay away from the mob. We need to stay away from the
Ah,
midtown. We need to keep expanding. And so we became a massive metro over here.
gotcha. So spanning into two states.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
I don't know
I
if
know.
other ones do it or not, but ours is about like 60 miles or more wide. You can keep going and you're still within city area for a long time, any direction.
Los Los Angeles is like that. It just is because of the earthquakes. You couldn't build tall buildings for a long time. City Hall was the tallest building in town. My dad said when he was growing up there. And then once they learned how to build earthquake safe skyscrapers, then the city started going up. But for a long time, it just spread out, and it was full of orange citrus groves, and that's where the word, I guess, Orange County comes from. And there still are some food production areas right outside of the city of Los Angeles, maybe within the county, but it's nothing like it used to be.
It's about the same here with beef. We used to be huge on beef and have fields of cows and stockyards, but that's really toned down as of
Well,
years.
and wasn't that a central hub before the meat went up to Chicago?
Yeah, yeah, it was.
And then from Chicago it went to the East Coast on the trains. Like they used to, well, I not for very long, but I studied this in American history that there was a time of like the cowboy runs where they would run cows all the way on foot from Texas and Kansas all the way up to the Chicago slaughterhouses.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. Um, we've got interesting history. You know, the older I get, the more I feel like I understand the patterns better of what's going on. But you know, there's it's still a mystery in so many ways.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I told you, you know, Dave Driver, right?
Yeah.
Remember one of the that movie? Did he recommend that movie to you, or did I recommend it to you? I forget the name of it, but it was about a vegan movie about Christian vegans.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
do you remember the name of it?
It was just on the tip of my tongue. I can't think.
It was
Uh,
like Christ
Conspiracy or something?
Christspiracy. There you go, Christspiracy. And so I've been sometimes I keep that in mind when I'm reading about the temple during Jesus' time, how they had turned it into a business. And he's like, "Hey, this is my father's house. They're selling or and sacrificing subpar meat on the altar to God." But really, it seemed like a business because they sold that meat and the priests sold that meat and they distributed it among their own families and friends and then redistributed it for their sustenance. Like that's how they made money. And I think that's one of the things that the movie talks about is how religion and meat consumption are very closely tied as well as economics.
Right. I can definitely see that.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of what the big fuss was about was that Jesus was trying to stop the business from that's what really was the last straw as far as the temple leaders were concerned when he overturns the tables and stops the exchange of money and sacrifice animals because I believe that you had to um, change your local currency. Like, let's say you came from the Greek Isles and you had the Greek money, you had to buy temple money, and there was a money exchange that took place. and that people were profiting off of it, and that they'd have to buy certain animals. You couldn't bring your own animal to sacrifice if you wanted to make a gift. You'd have to buy a temple approved animal.
Make sure it's kosher approved.
Well, I think kosher goes in the way it's being slaughtered, but you could say, yeah, they'd have it would obviously have to be kosher, clean,
Right.
is what kosher means. But
And always approved by a rabbi or somebody at the temple, right?
blessed, prayed for, and
Blessed.
blessed by. So yeah, so that's why they would have kosher meat, and it was blessed by the rabbi, and it was approved that it was clean. It had came with certain standards. Now I don't know if how honest and secure that is. Like the USDA could be manipulated by large players in the game who get vaccines. You know, FDA, what is
Right.
it, Food and Drug Administration? Yeah, they get food vaccines approved for animals. I heard they're trying to vaccinate the population now. And really, what it is it's depopulation. They're trying to make sure we don't have so many children. Um,
Yeah.
but they want to vaccinate the population through meat by vaccinating the cows and the pigs and the chickens.
It's getting so crazy. I've even seen they want to do it with lettuce and things like that. Well,
I heard everything you said, but right when you said the important thing, it kind of pixelated
I
on
hear
the.
they want to do that with lettuce and vegetable
Oh,
stuff as
yeah, with
well
our food.
too, which is crazy.
Believe me, and that's the whole thing. The Bible never says, "Hey, go live in a little jungle or community and grow your own food." But I just feel like I don't trust the food. Like I'm not running away from society to come live in this small community where I grow so much of my own food because I'm fearful. I do it because it just seems prudent when you know the government is poisoning our food supply. And not necessarily the government, but the government is allowing the corporations to poison our food supply because the quote inspectors are paid off.
Right.
And that's why, I find living in this little small community where people have their own animals, have their own trees, grow their own food to a large extent, and a lot of the food production is done down here. We still get things seasonally. When you live in the States, you can get stuff that comes in only in one season year round because it's imported from all over the world. And somewhere around the world, they're harvesting that shit.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
I,
feel like that's a good way to go with it too. I kind of wonder, and it makes me worry a little bit, but God's got it how the future will go with that because I think we may need those places to kind of hide and be sheltered off from the oppression that may come as end times continue on. Especially when we see Christians being killed in other countries and not much reaction with that. Worries me that'll come over here and people will be like, it's just the Christians, so it'll be just as quiet over here. And we'll have to be in safe spaces for that.
well, and you can definitely tell there's a war on Christianity taking place, whether you go to the extreme, not extreme, but go to the part like Bill O'Reilly says, "Hey, they won't even let us say Merry Christmas anymore." Or if you go to the fact that Christians are being beheaded around the world and that Christian communities are disappearing in all these war torn regions. Like it seems like whenever they create a war torn region, the only people who really disappear are the Christians.
Oh yeah, especially Syria recently, where they flipped that regime again, and then everybody decided all the Christians and Muslims that were not the green one need to be beheaded. So they're going around doing that to everybody.
Well, and the same thing happened in Lebanon. It's not just Syria. Lebanon, the country right below it, I'm sure most people know, but just I say that it sounds obvious. The country below Syria on the map on the map, um, they uh, um, had a huge Christian population. They were known as a Christian country in the Middle East, and after all the wars there, the Christians disappeared. Now, I don't want to get all conspiratorial, but after listening to Candace Owens recently, It does make me wonder because my Jewish relatives were so crazy when I became Christian. They were like, "How could you betray us?" I told you. Well, it was my uncle Jack mostly. Remember, I told you that.
Yeah,
Uh, so oh look, this one's still alive, still green.
still is. Wow.
Uh, that they really thought, "Oh, you're betraying the Jewish people if you become a Christian." Oh, you finished your hot chocolate, bud? And the the reality is that the Israelis may be involved in getting rid of some of the Christians in certain areas. I don't know. They really, you know how like the Chinese feel they were effed over by the British and the Americans because of the opium wars and things like that. And
Yeah.
now they're taking a long-term revenge strategy and trying to take over the West through elite capture and other methods.
And ideally, I hear they want to have it expanded at their 100-year anniversary or so too, or their anniversary of some 100 or 1,000 or something like that.
Oh, well, I think the 100 would be the communist revolution when the communists took over.
Oh yeah, there's one of those that they want to have a good step hold to when it comes up, so that they can start doing it. And it seems like they're priming themselves for that.
Um, hmm.
I think it may be 100 there for the
I,
common.
I think it might be 100 years of communism. I don't. Well, we could know by looking when Taiwan was founded, because Taiwan was the capitalists who ran for their lives from the commies. Mm. And uh, I don't know. Life's interesting. Oh, that's one of my fruit trees. I guess we trimmed the fruit tree the other day on on top there. Yeah, those things just grow. Like you could just set that branch on the ground. It's a plum. Like, I don't
Oh,
know if
nice.
it's a normal plum, but they call it a plum here. And it's got one big seed in the middle. Yeah, it's kind of like a plum, but it's not as big and fat on the outside, and it's not purple. It turns red when it's ripe.
Hmm. Interesting.
So maybe it's a Yucatan plum, but they call it a plum. And it's pretty. It's a sweet fruit, but you could just drop that branch on the ground, and it'll drop roots and start growing somewhere new. We have those in two different locations on the property, 6 trees in total. So we have 6 plums, like 10 citrus trees, 10 coconut trees. My avocados and mangoes aren't making it. I
Oh,
tried several times, but they keep dying on me. My bamboo's doing good, but that's not edible. We grow a lot of potatoes, Yukon Gold and sweet potatoes. They call camotes here. We have some other edible lettuces, and I'm starting to learn the trees. I told you how I'm learning the trees last time.
yeah.
Yeah, it's real interesting. My son said to me this morning, why are they all Mayan trees?" And I'm like, "Oh, we just learned the names from the Mayans, so we don't necessarily know the Spanish names." Like this one right here in front of us is a chaca, which
Yeah.
is for Chak. Chak is the rain. Chakmul, I think, is the Mayan rain god, and it's a very wet tree. It's a soft tree. When you cut it, it turns and leave it on the ground. It'll turn black when it rots.
Huh.
And like the habin, this one is red in the middle. It's a very hard wood, burns slow, makes a nice ash that'll keep a coal until the next morning. Like we didn't even have to light this fire. This is from last night's fire. There was a hot coal in there. We just grabbed some leaves off the ground, throw them in here.
That's interesting. Nice.
Hmm. Like I said, living here feels to me a lot like living in Havasupai, the Grand Canyon, with
Yeah.
the Native Americans. And these are Native Americans, also the Mayans that we live with. It's a village that's about the same size as the Grand Canyon village of Supai. And not the Grand Canyon one, but the Supai village, because the Supai people also have a separate village inside the Grand Canyon National Park.
Nice. That one
Yeah.
sounded really cool down at the bottom of the
The
canyon.
Grand Canyon. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I started going there when I was 6 years old. It's such a beautiful place. The people are very kind, and not. It's a lot like this place. I find that um, when you're around people that don't have a lot of material things, and not that they don't have material things, but they don't have like from compared to growing up in Beverly Hills, they don't have as much material things. Um, they have more spiritual things, more rich family life, more of a passion about talking to their neighbors and being neighborly, and it's it's a different vibe compared to the city.
I can see that. It'd be
Yeah,
pretty.
like you said, you grew up on that tiny little place out of town. How many people lived in your community back then?
Uh, it's kind of really hard to guess. At the minimal, everybody had to have 5 acres or more. I know I could see maybe four neighbors when I look out the door because it was kind of flat and kind of a. We were on top, not quite flat, but we were kind of on top of a hill that you could see the kind of surrounding areas, which doesn't sound like it's that different, but I know I come here in the city and I look out my back porch and there's easily 30 houses that I can see right next
Right.
door is my neighbors. So it was a
Yeah.
big obviously difference.
Well, it's interesting because it still is fairly inexpensive down here. Like I'm sure there's farmland and farm communities in the states that are inexpensive, but it's going up quickly as more and more people move down here.
Yeah, we got a lot of that, particularly in this area that I'm in now because it's about 30 miles out of the city and it was pretty farmland until the last few years, maybe 10 or 20 years. And everybody's kind of moving in and the land's going up quickly as it's turning from farmland to residential.
Yeah. I witnessed the same thing when I was a kid. That's why I said I keep seeing these cycles over and over. When I was in Northern California, in the late 60s, early 70s, they turned all the farmland into Silicon Valley and became track homes. And, uh, the executives who worked in San Francisco would drive an hour to work each way back and forth so that their families didn't have to live in the city because San Francisco, is falling apart now. I think the trend started in the 60s. It got better in the 80s again, but there was crime. I remember when I was a kid, we had some friends come visit our cousins from they lived in a rural community up in Idaho, and they came down to visit us in the city of San Francisco, and the battery of their car was stolen their first night there. Yeah.
So that's
So we were just like, that's crazy. And I remember my dad, we moved out of the city after that. We moved out to the suburbs, and they were like they got a new car battery, and they're like, we're out of here. We're not hanging around a place where people are like this. And
unfortunately our area is kind of like that. It's known for people to come by and steal your catalytic converter off your car, so you really got to watch and keep an eye out in the neighborhood.
that happens in LA too.
That's
Those
great.
cat those catalytic converters are expensive, and they're mandated. So
So crazy.
yeah, um, yeah. Life is cyclical, and I think what was interesting. Speaking of cyclical and prophets, I was watching the Alex Jones interview that Tucker Carlson conducted.
Yeah, I saw part of that.
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched an interesting part where he said, you predicted on television, timestamp, dated, and everything, in July of 2001, which would be 2 months before, you said Osama bin Laden is going to fly planes into a building and be blamed, and it's going to be Osama bin Laden, and they're going to start a war in the Middle East. And he's like, instead of being hailed as a prophet, you were persecuted because of that. And he's like, how did you know that? What is it that allowed you to know that? And he said, I was looking at the propaganda, the predictive programming, that I was seeing, and the show, not X-Men, but the Lone Gunman, that had that same scenario of a jetliner being flown into the World Trade Center. He goes, I knew there was a World Trade Center before. They were talking about all sorts of blaming Osama bin Laden wants to have a terrorist attack on us, and he's been putting it in the media. And so I just said what I was seeing, and and everyone thought he was crazy at the time. And what the point that Tucker Carlson was saying was, he goes, I was in the temple. I was one of the high priests of the temple of news. And we did not see this coming, but you did, and you were on public access television. And and then you said, oh, our own government did it, it was a false flag. And all of us thought, oh, this guy's insane, our government would never do something like that. And yet now here we are 24 years later, and it's turning out that it looks like our own government, the Mossad, the CIA, just like they killed Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Robert F. Kennedy, uh, the Gulf of Tonkin, they were also involved in this. And then Alex Jones said, well, I was studying false flags, not just from the U.S. government, but throughout time. And I see a repeated pattern, a cycle that occurs over and over. And he goes, so I was just stating what I was seeing, and it wasn't some miracle of God. It was just my powers of observation, and I felt like, as a warning, I should tell people. And it makes you wonder how the prophets, maybe in the Bible, are any different. But they're people who just uh, love the truth so much that they can't help but say what they're seeing as the signs of the times. And maybe it is God and godly inspired. Morning, babe.
I know I've definitely had the godly inspired times where I've been revealed truth, and it seems like sometimes he just wants us to know things like that, or gives us the clarity to be able to see those kind of things. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting.
Right. Well, and getting back to the community here, is that's what it makes me feel like, is that I don't know how poisonous our food systems are going to become, or what type of famines that we'll be suffering from. But living in this little community where people produce so much of their own food, and we're really in a farming community where a lot of the income is from producing food. I I know, based on the fact that we've been here for so long, and we meaning the community, that even if it goes through very difficult times, this is the type of community that will come together and make sure that people have food, even if they don't have money or other luxury material items, that they've survived the conquest of the Spanish, the collapse of the Mayans, and yet they're still here plugging along, growing food, building houses, and making it.
That's a good place to be then, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I'm not saying it's there's no real movie theaters, there's no symphony going on or anything, but there's nice neighbors and there's community, and you can make it through challenging time. They've made it well. I don't not talk about the future, but in the past, they've made it through challenging times before, economically, environmentally, and they're still here, thriving.
Yeah, cool.
So, and that's the way I look at, like, the same thing with the Supais. And when you look at the people who live at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, when you look at some of the historical documentation, about how much farming they're doing, how much outside work they're providing for people outside of the tribe to bring income into the tribe, um, you see it change over time. And I think during the Depression, historically speaking, when things got really bad, people just farmed more, and they already had that uh, farming community mentality. They had the skill set to be able to do that, and they produced more food, and they made it through those hard times.
It's always good.
Yeah.
I was curious. Are you guys celebrating
Passover.
Easter or Passover, or how are you guys do that?
Um, we it was funny because last night we observed the full moon, which is and it turned Passover last night. I
That's
didn't
what I
even
was.
call. What's that?
So that's what I was thinking and going to ask because I saw some calendars say tonight, but then like Lou said, the appointed time was yesterday evening. It started. So
Well, what happens is the Hebrew calendar or the Jewish calendar, the day, because it goes back to the Bible, the first part of the day was night, and then the light was created. So the day starts when the sun goes down.
oh yes,
So it's a different perspective on things. So when the sun goes down, that is the beginning of Saturday or the Sabbath. Friday night is when it starts. We light the candles, have dinner. So it was both a Sabbath and a Passover. And people left Egypt on the full moon because that's when Pharaoh let them go. I guess after the firstborn had done, after they put the lamb's blood on their door post. But also, um, they didn't have flashlights back then. There was the Shekinah glory, the pillar of fire that led them, but it was also a full moon. Uh, so that helped because I think the full moon really, especially on a clear night, really illuminates something like 50% of the sunlight or something.
yeah, makes sense, especially out in the desert there in that area.
Yeah, exactly. Where you have it just shining right off the white sands
Yeah,
of,
full open
of
areas, nothing to block it.
oh yeah, like they're not in a canyon or something.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, it's so interesting. So me and the kids we didn't read the Exodus from Exodus last night, but typically I was reflecting on what I would do as a kid. We would always go to my grandmother's, Granny Annie, and have a seder. A seder means order in Hebrew, and so we're supposed to eat foods in certain orders, and it's a remembrance of when we say we were slaves back in Egypt and God set us free. So we're communing with our ancestors who had gone through those troubled times. We're having some sympathy for the Egyptians who suffered through the plagues. And so we spill out wine from our cup of joy, 10 drops and 10 drops, and then put each drop on our plate for each plague. Uh, and you dip your finger in the wine to do it. That's why I put my hand in front of the camera there. Um, so Yeah, so we didn't do that. And I was thinking, God, how I really want to have grandkids and be that guy like my grandmother to host the Passover every year at my house. How nice that would be um, to have some kind of celebration and create some kind of a tradition for my family. But the most important thing for me is just teaching the kids the Bible. And we have you ever heard of this thing? We listen, we don't judge.
uh, I've heard it, but I'm not sure what it refers to in that matter.
Okay, well, it's some kind of TikTok trend, and it's like funny stuff that is, oh,
But,
my dad is my uncle and my cousin or something. We listen, we don't judge, like weird stuff like that. And so we made up a Bible game version of that, and it's like I ended up murdering one of my most loyal soldiers, so I could have sex with his wife or cover up the fact that I cheated on him with his wife or whatever. And then it says we listen, we don't judge, and then you have to guess which character of the Bible that is.
no, nice.
Like,
That's a
do you know who that would be?
yeah, that'd be King David there.
King David, who had Uriah the Hittite killed so he could be with his wife Bathsheba, the mother of King Solomon. So these so we do things like that. So we do all the different characters of the Bible, and you then it's the next you guess, and then it's the next person's turn. And he's like, I lied to my husband, uh, or I lied to my wife and told her all of these things, and every time I lied to her she would turn on me. Finally I told her the truth, and her people chained me up and burned my eyes out.
Oh, so Samson.
Samson, right. We listen, we don't judge. So we played that game the other night. It was really fun because I was so impressed with how many characters and people and stories my kids knew from the Bible. And so I felt like, oh, wow, that's really great. And it was a fun game to play.
That's a neat one. I learned some things recently about the Passover. I guess the Council of Nicaea ended up changing it over to Easter because they said we didn't need to study or follow the way of the Jews since they killed Christ, which I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know was the way they did that before. But to me, the Passover seems so important. Like the modern people bring it, like they, in reflection, like they were coming out of Egypt. It reflects the same with Christ, that Christ brings us out from sin.
And out from the slavery of sin into the
Yeah.
freedom of brotherhood, of sonship with the Father. Um, and yeah, so it is a complete parallel right there. But
And then Christ is actually having the Passover meal too, and says always keep that and remember it in Him. So to me,
right,
it's weird that we're like, no, we need to we need to follow bunnies and eggs and
right.
more
Well, though
guys in the
those were
resurrection part. Like what?
those were the fertility rites of not Tammuz's mother. I forget what her name was.
Some said it was
Ishtar.
Ishtar. Yeah,
Ishtar, yeah. And but I think she also went by Osiris, was what the Egyptians called her or something. I don't know if that's Osiris and Ishtar might be the same
sure.
person. So, yeah, it is. It's very interesting how we get um, our traditions from non-biblical sources, like Easter, and it really came from the Catholic Church, and they're wanting to break away from the Jewish side of Christianity because for the first 300 years of Christianity, it was just considered another Jewish cult, uh, or another Jewish sect like um, they have now. We have Reform Jewry, Hasidic Jewry, um, Orthodox Jewry. There's so many different versions of Jewishness at the moment, and they all claim I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish, but uh, the real early Christians were just considered another sect of Judaism.
And then the Catholics decide they're going to do better on that, and we see how many denominations the Christians have. They probably have 10 times as many as the Jews, if not more, 100 times.
Who, the Catholics or the Christians?
The Christians, because we continued to split off of them. There's even the Catholics have the Orthodox and the
Right.
non-Orthodox and the Roman and stuff like that. But then it continues to split and split and split, and now we've got so many different versions of
R-
Christianity.
right, because each one wants to be as authentic and as pure as they can. And I guess the Baptists put an emphasis on baptism, the Methodists put it on the method, and the Protestants are protesting against the Catholics. Um, so yeah, it is history. It goes in cycles and repeats itself over and over. I think that's part of how the prophets were able to see the future, is they just looked at the past sometimes and saw that they say history repeats itself. Well, not exactly, but it rhymes for sure.
Same cycles, similar cycles every time.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, like similar things like the developing of the suburbs, the moving out of the cities when crime gets so high. And one of the reasons crimes get so high is because there's so many people you don't know. They have no connection to their neighbors. And so they will steal from them, lie to them, cheat, and just take advantage because they think there's all these people that they don't know. Where, like in a small community, you're more forced to worry about your reputation because everybody knows you.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah. Man, we barely ever talked about the Bible today at all in today's Passover. It's interesting.
Right.
I mean, I guess we did incorporate the Bible, but we never like read any specific passages.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting to me. Do you know they found the Pharaoh's son that probably died on Passover night?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, it was interesting. He has a half-shaved head with like one big long braid coming off the right side of his head, and they mummified him, and they found Ramses, his father, but they think they found the son too, the one who died that the Passover night, the firstborn son.
I hadn't heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I love archaeology too, so I subscribe to a few of those. You know, where it says, "What kind of news do you want?" And I'm like, "Biblical archaeology." Biblical archaeology for 500, Alex.
So that makes me wonder then, do you think it's true they found stuff under the pyramid or that's fake news?
Oh, I think that's true. I don't think they would fake that. They could, I guess. So much shit is they lie to us about. But
That's,
no, I don't know. I thought that was true with
well,
the
that's the thing I saw crazy is when the news came out, it said scientists found all of this stuff under the pyramids, and then it counteracted it and said historians and experts say that's false and fake news. I'm like, so scientists found it, but they're going to dispute and say it's fake news? Didn't the scientists find something physically there? Like,
well,
this is
no, what they used underground sonar. They didn't go down there and check yet, but using underground sonar, what they found was looked like spiraling things that go down almost 2 kilometers, which are 600 meters, even a half a kilometer. Seems ridiculously strange. I mean, it does sound slightly unbelievable, but um, one never knows. I don't know. I didn't really doubt it until you just said something right now.
that it was interesting with the news out there. I couldn't tell what's going on. Like, how are they reporting this? But then everybody's like, no, your reports are just made up. Like, you're scientists, though, so there's got to be good reports somewhere. You've got to have some kind of information.
Well, or they, yeah. I mean, it. Hopefully, it's repeatable and provable. That's the basis of science. Something that you can repeat, and someone else using your same methods can repeat it over and over and
I
get the same
myself
results.
am a big one that I think there was probably superior and higher technology before the flood, and the flood took out a lot of that. And as Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun, but we had really good technology to do kind of things at that time.
Well, and I think Atlantis was definitely a real place in northwest Africa, where the eye of the Sahara is, and
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, obviously we've had higher technologies in the past. They have vitrified glass in India and descriptions of nuclear wars, and the only way to make vitrified glass is with a nuclear reaction, or explosion. So um, you just never know. I mean, clearly, we're very intelligent people, beings, and love to go to war with each other over resources. So uh, it seems plausible that if two cultures had this ancient technology years ago, that they might have gone to war with each other and destroyed it all.
I think they may even got to the point that they are getting to similar now that they were digging into the genetic engineering and trying to recreate man again. And
I
that
feel the same way.
got
Yeah.
us. Like, nope, we're not doing that, guys.
Well, it kind of sounds like in the days of Noah, like, what
Exactly.
the hell was going on in these days of Noah? Was it genetic engineering? Was it just, it says violence was everywhere? I mean, how is it like it's not? I feel like we're very violent today. And um, here's some chikum. Now we got chikum, habim, and fruit tree. All there. Three different trees. And they look kind of the same from the outside. But on the inside, their density is different.
Hmm. Nice.
Yeah. Anyway. I didn't mean to get us off the subject.
You're all good.
Uh, well, I'm going to town today. We're gonna do a home birth, so I've got to look for a bathtub. We're gonna put a bathtub inside the sauna, so she can have warm water and a nice place to vibe out when the baby's born.
Do you guys have a midwife or a doula to help out there?
We're looking for one, but I delivered this little dude by myself. Bro.
Oh,
What? So, and I've been there for all the births of my kids. So this sixth one, I think I can handle, but Rocio wants a midwife, so we're looking for one.
right. Nice.
Yeah, Ellie Kai is the name she likes.
Nice. Where's that one come from?
It's Hebrew, El God Kai. I think it's. I probably have to look it up again. I forget, but it's one who loves God or one who God loves, or it's like Samuel. You know how Samuel is God hears.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is one who worships God or something about. Forget what. Let's see. Kai would be alive.
It's got L in it. So,
Well, El is from Elohim.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
anytime you see El Eli, that is God.
So I could recognize
Because
that part. I couldn't recognize the rest. But
yeah, that's like Emmanuel,
exactly.
Samuel, Daniel. They all put the Elohim at the end of their name, but this is at the beginning. So those are usually something of God. This one is God.
Like
I,
God be
I
with
forget.
us, stuff like that. Or
Now I'm gonna
I
have to
think
look
which
it
one
up
that
right now.
was.
Did you? Is my camera still on or no?
Oh, it just turned black.
Okay, that's because I'm googling what it means. Elikai meaning in the Bible. Here it goes. The name Elikai, modern Hebrew. God is my savior. God is my salvation. It's a unique and rare name, often given to a male name. Someone considered it a Hawaiian variant of Elisha and Kai. The Hebrew roots and meaning reflect a deep connection to faith and a belief in God's saving power. Elikai.
Makes sense. Close to Elijah. So Elijah starts out that way.
Yeah, we were thinking about Elijah too. God is my salvation. What does Elikai? Yeah, that's what it means. God is my salvation. Okay, let me go back
Nice.
to the. All right, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Let's go to settings, camera. I'll say hi here for a minute. Front of camera. All right, I'm back. Oh, I got smoke in my eyes. The wind just changed.
Of course.
I know it happens. Anyway. Oh, I got a chicken in my garden. I gotta get that little mother.
Yep. They're
How
out
much do I
eating
get
everything
out of
again.
here? What's that?
I said they're out
Oh
there
yeah,
eating everything.
yeah. He just ran. He knew I was coming over. He got my vibe. Yeah, you guys better get out of here. They're like little dinosaurs. You see him running?
Right? Yeah.
And there's Big Roosty. He goes
It's
slow. Foghorn, Leghorn.
the only way I can see that they
What's
would
up,
be related
Roosty?
to T-Rexes. They act like them.
They act like dinosaurs?
Yeah, like Tyrannosaurus Rexes.
That's what I think so too. I really think T Rex was a bird.
Especially now that they're going back and saying, "Hey, these didn't look leathery skin like that. They had feathers." That's all happened back then.
Right. Are they finding more feathers there?
Yeah, you know, yeah. There was one not too far back that they said that now they believe the T Rex had feathers, just kind of like they thought the Velociraptors actually were feathered.
Look at this. This thing is wet. My chickens fish out some of the snails. Then they eat the snail out of the middle like French people, and then they leave the shell right on the edge. Oh, did you see that giant fish down there?
Oh, yeah, there it is.
There's a couple of them.
Nice,
We eat them. They're delicious. Comes out like a nice white meat.
nice. That's a good cut of them.
And so here, Those are all potato leaves, camote leaves. Those are all edible. We had some of those the other day in our sandwich. You can cook them up like spinach. Same with this water lettuce. Not the tastiest, but it's fully edible.
Greens for you there.
Yeah. Anyways, so here is the gym where we're gonna have the baby. Probably see that little glass door there in the back.
Yeah.
That's the sauna. So we're gonna open the sauna. Oh, the beautiful birds are in there right now. I just saw one. And uh, we're gonna put in a bathtub in here, a big plastic bathtub. Oh, the kids left their stuff here last night. They were watching a movie. And let's see. Somebody
Oh, yeah.
left some clothes in here. Can you see okay?
Kind of. It's cutting in and out a little bit.
I'm using the kids' clothes they left to wipe them. Oh, there's a bird right there. You see that yellow bird?
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes, oh, I sent you a picture of that exotic one too, didn't I?
Yeah. That one with the wild blue tail. Oh, there we lost him a moment. Must have got funny connection.
Anyway, I got to get going, Chapin. I got to use the restroom. I got to take a shower, and then I'm heading to town today.
Sounds good. Thanks for
Yeah.
the discussion.
So when you come to visit, here's my little spot. Here's our gym, workout space. Got a nice
Nice.
yoga mat type situation there, I guess. Look at the red, white, and blue. My
Nice.
kids call it Spider-Man colors, but
I
I,
think I,
yeah, it does kind of look like Spider-Man, though, doesn't it?
right. True.
I tried to make it like red and white stripes. See the red and white stripes,
Right. Yeah.
and then the blue and the stars. My kids don't appreciate America as much as I do. Anyway, why don't you say a prayer and get us out of here? And
Sounds sounds good. Dear Almighty God, thank you for the season you bring us into and learning, talking about your Passover, and help these people be encouraged to know that you came from for the sent your son for them to help deliver them from the sin and help us through all these things that we go for. Help us go after your heart and do the things righteous in your ways. Thanks for all the blessings. Amen.
amen. All right. Well, listen, you have a great day, Chapin. We'll talk soon. Thanks
Thanks.
for making this happen as usual.
Thanks for hanging out. Take care.
All
Have a
right.
good evening.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.